In this video, we're going to talk about what an exempt employee is. So classifying somebody as exempt is not so simple, but an exempt employee is not protected by the minimum wage and overtime laws. But these individuals don't get time and a half when they work over 40 hours. And as far as the state minimum wage or the federal minimum wage, that's nowhere in the ecosystem for this type of employee. However, they must meet several types of tests, and there's two of them. They must meet a salary test and they must meet a duties test to be exempt. And again, not every person is exempt. So when you're looking at one of your restaurant employees, you should be asking yourself, hey, if I'm going to sit here and exempt this person, are they meeting these wages or not? So the first one is the salary level test. Now, just to be clear, $684 per week is the minimum they must be paid per week. Even if you pay them the salary, you must still pay them at least $684 a week. It doesn't matter. So yes, I did break it down to a $35,568 a year, but remember, 684 is the minimum you must pay them per week to meet the salary level test. But there's two other components. If the person is highly compensated, right now, the Fair Labor Standards Act defines that as $100,000 in annual compensation. That's highly compensated. And then, of course, a computer professional. You're probably not going to see this in the restaurant business unless you're a massive restaurant that has a bunch of different locations and you have a computer IT professional who floats in between those locations and gets your points of sale up and your technology up and running. Those individuals must be paid at least $27.63 per hour to be considered an exempt level computer professional. Now, that's just one leg of the exempt level process. Not only do they have to meet the salaries test, but they also must meet the duties test. You can't just sit here and say, oh, this tipped employee makes $60,000 a year, so they're considered exempt. That's not the case. You have to also look at their duties. And there's really only a few types. The first one is known as the white collar exemptions. Every time I hear this one, I just think of the acronym EAP. Some people are like, is that employee assistance program? No, it's the executive, administrative, and professional duties. Now, the Fair Labor Standards Act is very clear with what these items are, but again, it could also be construed as vague because they are saying things. If this person is an executive, that means they're typically a CEO, a COO, or somebody that's in a high ranking position. This person is making very big decisions that affect the entire business. And typically, they have at least 1 to 3 employees that are reporting directly to them. And they also have to make decisions on people's employment and wages. So if you're a person that's making those decisions, there could be an executive level exemption. Administrative and professional are basically the exact same, but keep in mind when I say white collar, these are non-manual office positions. That means the person is sitting down at a computer or working in an office environment. They're not working in a manufacturing company. They're not sitting there welding or tacking. They're not going and lifting materials and bringing it in a open environment out in the open. We're talking about people who are working in a office environment. Well, administrative and professional, they're almost the exact same where they both can potentially have decisions that affect matters of significance for the business. So whatever they decide could affect the business financially, but it also means that they are utilizing independent discretion where they're making decisions on their own. They don't have to go through a manager to make this decision. They get to decide how to do it the best of their ability. So in other words, they're utilizing their own independent discretion and their own decisions. But then there's a couple of other types, outside salespeople. When I say the word outside, hopefully that makes sense. It's not a person sitting inside of an office making telephone calls and making inside sales. That's an inside salesperson. They are not exempt. When it comes to an outside salesperson, that means they are driving to the actual locations and making sales. They are going out in the field. They are never in one particular place at one point in time. Could they work from home and do some paperwork? Yes, but they are out making sales. Learned professionals. These are people like doctors. These are people like lawyers, attorneys. These are people like PhD levels that go through a large amount of education. Learned professionals. And then, of course, certain computer professionals. Those are the specific duties tests that must be met in order for a person to be considered exempt. And remember, it's not just the salary level, it's also the duties test as well.